The rain had grown steady by the hour I reached the page in my ledger marked only by a wavering inked symbol, 3 small ripples inside a circle. I traced it with a fingertip. The fire at my side dimmed as though listening. There are some accounts in my collection that seem to carry their own weather. You will know them when the temperature in the room dips and the shadows lengthen without permission. This tale belongs to the high desert of the United States of America, in a place called Massacre Rocks, where the Snake River runs cold even in summer. The land there is carved from volcanic stone, dark and jagged, as though the earth itself was once struck and split apart. Travelers speak of the wind that never fully rests, the kind that steals warmth, breath, and occasionally other things. People have crossed that stretch for nearly 200 years. Some arrived safely, others left pieces of themselves behind, and the river, patient as all rivers are, learned to keep secrets in its depths. Over time, those secrets learned to stir. Most dismissed the legend of the water babies as frontier superstition, a story created by exhausted minds under too much hunger and too much sky. But I remember the first time I heard their cries, a distant plaintive sound drifting through fog not carried by any living child, a cry shaped more by memory than breath. In 1851, the Oregon Trail had already claimed countless lives. Wagons stretched west, like a thin thread stitched across the continent. They rattled over baked earth and through sagebrush plains, carrying hopes that shimmered like mirages in the distance. Many families whispered that the desert was testing them. Others believed it was punishing them. When the Turner family reached Massacre Rocks, they had already buried 2 members of their group. Graves marked only by stones, wind-scraped, temporary. Ruth Turner walked beside the wagon, her infant son held close beneath a quilt, fading from blue to grey. She had stitched that quilt by lamplight, their last winter in Illinois. Back then, she believed the journey would be hard, but meaningful. She believed she would watch her son grow into the promise of a better life. But the desert had a way of thinning such dreams until they were nearly transparent. The day they reached the crossing, the sky held no softness. The basalt cliffs rose like sentinels. The Snake River cut through the valley in a twisting, pale ribbon. It seemed calm from a distance, but the current beneath the surface was known to steal livestock, wagons, and people without ever revealing where it had taken them. Ezra Turner, her husband, rode ahead with the men, testing the riverbank for a safer ford. He did not return with reassurance. He returned with silence. The first wagon entered the water, oxen strained, nostrils flaring white against the cold. Wheels groaned. The river swallowed the lower spokes, and all around them the silence broke. The wind carried a cry, thin, trembling, unmistakably the sound of an infant. Ruth froze mid-step. The quilt shifted in her arms as she looked toward the water, but the cry did not come from her child. It came from somewhere deeper, somewhere the mist curled and clung like breath on a mirror. Another cry followed, then another. Her husband called for her to come forward. She did not. She only watched the river, watched the way the current spiraled around an unseen shape just beneath the surface. She knew then that something lived in the water, something that wanted to be heard. No one willingly spoke of what was happening among the wagon trains that season, yet everyone knew. The desert stretched mercilessly ahead. Supplies dwindled, children grew sick from fever and spoiled food. Families were forced to choose which burdens they could carry and which might doom them all. It became easier, dangerously easy, to look at survival as mathematics. Ruth Turner listened as women whispered of neighbors who had made the terrible choice to leave infants at riversides or in shallow graves. A decision wrapped in grief but fueled by starvation and fear. No mother ever admitted to such acts. But the desert did not hide the truth well. It reflected it like heat. Her own child had been weakening for days. His breath came shallow, his lips pale. As Ruth walked the banks of the Snake River, she felt each tiny heartbeat flutter like the wing of an injured bird. She prayed with a desperation that bordered on pleading. That night, the child's breathing stopped. Her world contracted to a single silent point. She did not scream. She did not call for Ezra. She simply held the body closer, as though warmth might re-enter it through sheer will. But the desert night was cold and indifferent. When dawn edged over the horizon in a thin grey line, Ruth walked alone to the water. The river met her with a soft, lapping hush. She stepped to the edge, the quilt pressing heavily against her chest. She felt the current pull at her skirts, felt the weight of her grief sink into her bones. There were no witnesses, no voices, only her, the river, and a silence that felt almost gentle. They say she stood there for a long time. Long enough for the sun to climb higher, long enough for the mist to shift and reveal small shapes moving beneath the surface, pale, drifting, waiting. When she returned to camp, the quilt was gone. Ezra asked no questions. The others pretended not to notice. But the river did. It carries memory differently from soil. It does not bury. It gathers, and sometimes it calls back what should have been allowed to rest. The Turner family continued west, their tragedy unspoken but never forgotten, but the Snake River held the moment in its depths like a captured breath. Travelers who passed through Massacre rocks in the years that followed began telling the same stories. A baby crying at dusk where there were no families. A soft splash beside a wagon wheel, even though nothing broke the surface. Small ripples gathering around a campfire's reflection, as if tiny shapes were circling just out of reach. Some heard laughter, short, sharp, and eerily close. Others felt something tugging at the hems of their clothing when they stooped to wash in the shallows. Most disturbing were the reports from parents. Mothers woke in the dark to the weight of something crawling onto their blankets, settling near their ribs with the fragile heaviness of a child. Fathers swore they saw small pale hands pressing upward on the underside of the river's surface, like children swimming beneath ice. Yet no bodies were ever recovered. In journals hidden beneath wagon seats, settlers described dreams of children calling to them from the water, asking to be held, to be claimed, to be remembered. Many nightmares began with sorrow and ended with terror, for the water babies, if that is what they were, grew bolder with each passing year. They reached for the living because they had been abandoned by the dead. Their cries were not of hunger, they were longing, and the river echoed them endlessly. I lift my eyes from the ledger. The study's fire crackles in a low, uneasy cadence as though reacting to a memory that is not mine, but deeply familiar. Even here, far from the desert, far from the Snake River, I can sense the cold touch of that water. It is the sensation of something small brushing against the skin, not malicious, merely searching. You may wonder why these spirits linger. Why have they not found rest? But rest requires closure, and closure requires a grave. Many frontier infants never received one. They were given to the river, whether willingly or through despair, and the river, unable to mother them, could only keep them. The water babies are not creatures of malice. They are echoes of choices made under unbearable weight. Their cries are the lingering sound of sorrow without release, and still the river calls. The storm outside my window softens to a mist, the tall panes glistening as though the world itself is weeping. I close the ledger gently, feeling the faint tremble of unsettled memory lingering between its pages. Massacre Rocks remains quiet now, a desert marked by wind-scoured stone and shifting dust. Travelers still pause there, though few stay long. The atmosphere is heavy, as if the air itself carries grief. Those who listen carefully truly listen, say they can still hear the water babies at dusk. A soft rising cry just beneath the river's song, a plea carried by small voices that never fully grew into the world. If you ever stand by that stretch of the Snake River and feel a tug at your clothing, or hear something that sounds like laughter drifting across the current, do not turn away in fear. These spirits seek only acknowledgement. They reach for the living because the living once turned away. Some hauntings come from malice. Others are born from sorrow so deep that even death cannot quiet it, and the river remembers everything entrusted to it. Everything.